Hello and welcome back to this damn Philatalistic Crusade. This video is going over two more Indiana Jones publications that I have. The first is in the sort of tradition of I guess technically the science of or the reality of books in regards to films. These are usually unauthorized and done in trade paperbacks, but this is the one for Indy, which is, of course, aptly titled, Why Did It Have to Be Snakes? This was done for around the time of Crystal Skull when these books were more popular. But essentially, this is taking the films and bringing them into the world of reality. So it's going through with each film and even the Young Indy series getting a section, but then talking about the practical realities of everything. Of course, most of this stuff you could now very easily look up online, but this is from the same writers behind things like The Science of James Bond. So if you've ever seen one of these, you definitely get the idea of what it is trying to do. It's basically a nice sort of, passing the time read or bathroom read or something. It's technically not going to be a gigantic eye-opening thing if you haven't already researched the films and looked at the influences or have some knowledge of the history surrounding the film's plots. But, we get sections on the Holy Grail, we get sections on voodoo dolls and the actual Thuggee cult in India. So we get that in the Temple of Doom section. We get just all kinds of interesting bits and pieces, but it's also nice that they also did a section on Young Indy. And then, of course, we get a small section on the that we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. It's very small because, of course, this came out around the time of the film, so it's really just 2 pages, which is amusing. So you only get 2 pages about the sort of story behind the Crystal Skull. So this is over 200 pages long, but it's a very quick read. Is it essential? No, but it's fun to have on hand if you want to leaf through it. But if you've ever seen any books like this, you very clearly have an idea of exactly what you get in this. This is just the Indiana Jones variant. Now the other is something I stumbled across recently in a store. I remember seeing this magazine, but I never had it growing up because I only subscribed to Star Wars Insider for a little bit. But I managed to find a small stack of Insiders, and they had issue 54, which has the whole Raiders of the Lost Ark 20th anniversary special. And this is about 20 pages, but it's fascinating to get that sort of, hey, remember what it was like to be an Indy fan in 2001 when there was nothing around. We were in between games. That's about all we had. We had just gotten Infernal Machine, and Emperor's Tomb would come out in 2003 along with the DVDs. So again, this was before even the DVDs came out. But this is a nice sort of overview at the time of Indy, and also talking about the sort of, we get a little Where Are They Now, we get making ofs for the films, and of course the trilogy as it was at that point. And then we get some talk about the 4th film that was still in development at the time. So this is very much just a complete you are there experience for how it was to be an Indy fan in 2001 and how we didn't have much. So we were all just starving for indie content outside of having the books and having at least a couple games coming out. And then rather nicely, we do get discussion of the other indie materials. As you can see, they have the novels, the comics, some of the games, and they discuss them a little bit. Even the really wonderful trilogy Pinball Machine, which I think is from 1993, which I have played and is a lot of fun. And then at the bottom, we have a whole section on the Dream DVD. So this basically is DVD requests of what the fan writing this would like to see on the Indiana Jones DVD that was forthcoming and would still take another 2 years before we'd see it. But I just loved finding this right now because I'm in my full indie mindset, and I think I may have read this when it was on like newsstands or in a bookshop, but I just never actually owned this or got it because again, I only got Insider for a little bit of time. But unfortunately, it's only a short section, but at least we got the wonderful cover with candid Harrison Ford on it. But this is one of those they would do where it's a flip cover. So this is the actual issue 54 main cover around, leading up to Attack of the Clones, obviously. But, you flip it over and you get an Indy cover. They did do some Indy features throughout the history of Insider and before, when it was the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine, before it was rebranded Insider specifically. But this is the one where you get the full Indy cover, and it was just lovely to find this around this time, so I figured I would feature it a little. But again, it's just the flip side of the Attack of the Clones cover. I actually went back to that store and they wound up putting out a whole bunch of old Insider issues. So I guess somebody traded in just their whole collection of old Insider copies. And I went through, and some of these actually are from the number of issues that did have Indy features or covers. I think there were about maybe 10 to 15 Insider issues over the years that had some sort of Indy feature. And of course, that really started to come to the fore when we started getting news about the film we don't like to mention, which of course is Crystal Skull. So this is the second collector's cover of the Crystal Skull Indy 4 news announcement video, nicely having a bit of Harrison from Temple of Doom. So this is another of the major Indy covers that Insider got. Unfortunately, all of the Indy features in Star Wars Insider were still very minor, so this is usually just going to be a couple pages here and there, and you can literally see that here because it's just a paragraph about the announcement of Indy 4, and that's it. So at least there's some Indy representation, but it's still very minor. The next issue, number 93, was the first to be published by Titan Books. So this is basically the next version of the Insider magazine. And this started a series called the Indy Vault, which actually was done by J.W. Rinsler, I guess, when he was preparing the making of Indiana Jones tome that is essential for all fans. And it's kind of sort of like a little teaser for different aspects of the films and the making ofs in a succession of Insider copies. So I have a couple of these that had that, but unfortunately, again, it's just a very small, 2-3 pages, but you also had sporadic bits about the making of Indy 4. So here's a little bit here. And of course, because it's still Star Wars Insider, it's just crammed into the Star Wars features. So you get this nice image of Indy being tucked next to Slave Leia from Jedi. And then here is the 2 pages of Indy Vault. So it's basically going into the Lucasfilm archives and talking about some of the props and making up materials a little bit. And the text was done by J.W. Rinsler. So this is basically like a mini sort of teaser for his making up book. And this is what you find in these particular copies of Insider. Next is number 96, which has this nice collectible alternate cover, but this just has another of the Indy Vault supplements in here. This one nicely gives you some original storyboards and materials from the opening of Last Crusade. And the last one I have is issue 97. So I don't have all of the Indy Vault Star Wars Insider issues, but it's just a nice little feature they did at the time to tie into the hype surrounding Indy 4. This one is all about the map room in Raiders. So this basically is a selection of storyboards with some J.W. Rinsler text about the development of the map room sequence. So there you have 2 more Indy printed materials that I just happen to have in my collection. Neither is, of course, absolutely essential, but the issue of Insider with the 20th anniversary of Raiders is just a really cool piece. And again, it makes me flash back to that time of how it was being an Indiana Jones fan in 2001 when there just wasn't much of anything besides oh, I'm going to rewatch the films again, because the Young Indy show was only available in a couple of the recut versions in terms of VHS releases. There were a couple of the mini movies available, and then the novels I never got to read growing up. I finally found Seven Veils, the third book, somewhere around this time. I think it was maybe a couple years even after that point, because I wasn't buying books on the internet then, and eBay was not even on my horizon in 2001, as I was still, I was still like 10 or 11. So I found out about the indie books, but I could never find them in our local bookstores, so I couldn't even read those. And then I finally started getting to play Infernal Machine, and again, this is before even Emperor's Tomb was out. So our indie options were limited. So any sort of indie focus or celebration was like a mind exploding, because it was like, what? There's indie material? Yes, even if it's 20 pages in the back of Star Wars Insider this month, it's great. I love it. So it was wonderful reading this and getting that nostalgia of reading a Star Wars Insider issue, a legitimate, real Insider issue, doing a full indie focus in 2001. So these have just been two more bits of indie printed materials that I have that I thought I would put out in video form. If you have any memories of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I hope my babblings about the further printed materials involving the man with the hat have been at least somewhat fun and informative. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.